So, it's a pretty well-known fact that the original Mario 64 can be beaten without obtaining a single star, with the 0-star speedrun of the game being maybe one of the most famous in the entire world. So naturally, you would assume that its remake, Mario 64 DS, could be beaten without a single star as well, as they're basically the same game. But the thing is, they're not the same game. They're actually very different. Hell, the main trick used in the original's 0-star speedrun, the BLJ, can't even be done in the DS remake. Like I said, they're very different. But hilariously enough, they're also really similar in one aspect. Just like the original, Mario 64 DS can be beaten without obtaining a single star. Now, you may ask, how is that possible? How could we beat the game without collecting a single star without the game's most important trick? Well, what if I told you the DS remake is just as broken, if not more, than its N64 counterpart? Because, goddamn, is it ever broken? I'm Dan from Press A, and this is How Many Stars Does It Take to Beat Mario 64 DS? Guys, if you think this game still kicks ass, even with its shitty D-pad controls, please like this video. Thank you. So, how the hell do you go about beating this game with 0 stars? Well, to find that out, we're gonna have to look at the 0-star any percent task created by Sharkly91, Really Tall, Migu, Bobby Bob, Adeal, and Rupa. If you didn't know, TAS stands for Tool Assisted Speedrun, which is a speedrun that allows runners to use tools such as save states or frame perfect commands to beat the game as fast as theoretically possible. So not only is this speedrun beating the game with 0 stars, it's actually doing it as fast as you possibly can, which is why this task starts out with a pretty complex trick. Normally, to enter the castle in the DS version, you need to capture this rabbit and use the key it drops to open the front door. Now, doing this is pretty slow, and the task team just doesn't have time for that. So instead, they take Yoshi over to the waterfall beside the castle and perform what's called a fast slide kick to climb up this steep wall. This is done by holding the R button and mashing A and B in a rhythmic fashion. If done correctly, it allows you to climb up walls not normally accessible to Yoshi. It's basically used in the same way the jump kick is used to climb slopes in the original. But yeah, they use the fast slide kick to climb up the wall until they reach the top. Then they perform a slide kick down the hill, which sends them flying into the castle wall, and then into the air. What you just witnessed here is called a Heaven's Portal, one of the most powerful glitches in Mario 64 DS. To perform a Heaven's Portal, you need to do a slide kick or a dive into a glitchy corner, which is essentially just a corner that allows the character model, or more specifically the collision of the character model, to slightly enter the wall. This can also be achieved by hitting a wall at a high rate of speed while doing a slide kick, which is what the task team does here. Now, if this is done at a certain angle and the character is moving downwards, they will get sent up to the ceiling above them. Now, because Yoshi is outside, you would assume there is no ceiling above him. But there is. There's actually an invisible ceiling high above the castle, which is why he gets sent up so high. It's so high, in fact, that he's actually able to land on top of said castle, which is where our next trick takes place. A trick so broken that it makes the BLJ look like child's play. What you're seeing in front of you right now is called quantum tunneling, and it's absolutely insane. Like many games, Mario 64 DS's world is made up of triangles. Now, these triangles, such as the ones in walls, ceilings, and floors, have collision on them, so the characters in the game can't just pass through them whenever they want. However, these triangles have a little secret. Some of them have gaps in between them. And I know, you're probably thinking, okay, so Yoshi just jumped in between one of these gaps in the floor triangles. What's the big deal? Well, you're kind of right, but it's not nearly that simple. You see, the developers knew about these gaps. So, to make sure players weren't just randomly falling through the floor, they added a collision layer around each one of these triangles, thick enough to fill in the gaps. Unfortunately for the developers though, there is a major issue with these collision layers. Or should I say, there's a major issue with how the game checks if they're there. To see what I mean, let's look at how this game detects collision in the first place. So, in our example, Yoshi is moving downwards towards the floor. As he continues to move down, a detection ray is cast, and if it hits one of these floor triangles, Yoshi gets pushed back. However, these rays have a major flaw. They don't check for detection at the very start and very end of the ray. They are also only sent out once per frame. So, if we could position Yoshi in a way that the detection ray that's sent out from him lands exactly on that buffer in between triangles, we would be able to get him halfway through the triangle. Now that he's halfway through, on the very next frame, another ray will be sent out. But since Yoshi's in the middle of the detection layer now, that ray's starting point will be exactly that of the layer, which means it won't detect anything and Yoshi can just clip right through. This is essentially a bare bones explanation of how quantum tunneling works. In reality, it's way more complicated and way more precise than I made it out to be. Like, for example, I didn't even mention a whole other collision check that happens with the player character model and the triangles themselves. Essentially, the triangles check for the center of the player character model 50 units perpendicular to their surface. So the player character has to be traveling at a speed of at least 50 units per frame to avoid this detection. If all these conditions are met, then Yoshi will finally be able to clip through the floor. But the hilarious thing is that this trick doesn't even end here, because he's still not even through the front door yet. To actually get through the front door, he needs to build up horizontal speed before he tunnels through the roof. This is to ensure he lands on this tiny seam where the wall is normally supposed to be. Since the seam is so tiny, it's really easy to run off. So he does a ground pound, which brings his speed to 0, which then allows him to do a long jump and hit the loading zone for the castle door, finally getting him inside the castle. So now that the task team is inside the castle, they have a problem. To actually make any progress inside the lobby, they need to collect power stars to open these star doors. In fact, they need 8 to bypass the first Bowser door so they can get the key to unlock the game's next area. But obviously, they can't do that. They can't collect any stars. So what are they going to do? Well, ladies and gentlemen, they're going to use some more quantum tunneling. They quickly long jump up the stairs, then do a side flip to gain a specific height and speed, which allows them to tunnel through the floor. Now, just like with the mode outside, they do a ground pound to land on the seam of the wall, then perform a double jump flutter kick combo, which allows them to hit the loading zone for the 1-star door. Now, unlike the 64 version, there's a lot more behind this door than just the princess's secret slide. There's this whole area where you can change which character you're playing as, this room with the toad, which contains an 8-star door, and finally, past the 8-star door, lies the painting where you get the Mario key from. Now, this 8-star door causes the task team another issue. Just like with the Bowser door, they need 8 stars to open it. And they have to open it because they need the Mario key to unlock Mario so they can defeat Bowser. This is because Yoshi is the only character in the game that can't grab Bowser's tail, which means he can't swing him around, which means he can't kill him. So, to beat the game, they need to unlock one of Mario, Luigi, or Wario. And since Mario is the easiest and fastest to unlock, it means they have to get past this 8-star door. To do this, the task team breaks out another tool from their toolbox. This tool being called corner clipping. So remember that Heaven's Portal trick I talked about earlier? Corner clipping is pretty similar to that, except for the fact that there's actually a roof above them this time, which changes the trick completely. So, as I explained earlier, jumping into a glitchy corner or a wall at high speeds sends you up to the ceiling above you. Since there's actually a ceiling in this room, a sloped ceiling to be exact, which is important for this trick to work, Yoshi hits it and falls back down, clipping him through the wall. Now all they have to do is long jump around the border of the room and into the room with the Mario painting, which they hit and enter the level. So now that they're in the Goom Boss stage, there isn't actually anything too special they do, just a bunch of cool movement to beat the level as fast as possible. Like this trick called the Great Up Warp Glitch. which is performed by hitting this grate in a weird spot that makes the game think you're stuck in a wall. Since the game doesn't want you to be stuck in a wall, it spits you out at the top, which makes getting by this grate a lot quicker. Then there's this trick they use to get up the pole way faster, called an egg reset. Basically, when Yoshi is creating an egg, there is 2 frames where he's able to jump again, even if he's in the air like this. So all they do is eat the Lakitu, perform a side flip, create the egg, then quickly perform a backflip, which basically gets them all the way up the pole. Next, they perform a glitchy long jump, which basically just allows them to long jump while facing in another direction. They do this so they can long jump up this large slope, which you normally can't do while facing forward. However, you can long jump down slopes. So if they point Yoshi slightly downwards, they're able to long jump up the slope when you normally shouldn't be able to. All of these tricks combined allows them to get to the boss in a blistering time of 19 seconds. A boss who they dispose of super quickly, then kill themselves just as they grab the key. This causes them to be booted out of the boss fight instead of the painting, which is normally what happens when you collect the key. Obviously, they don't want to do that because they still can't get past that 8-star door. So instead, they boot themselves right out before the boss fight, then use the menu to return to the lobby. At this point, they actually have to perform the same trick they did earlier, where they use Yoshi to tunnel through the floor, then flutter kit up to the loading zone. They have to do this because they need to switch to Mario to beat Bowser, and they are still unable to get past this door because they have 0 stars. So they do the trick, get into the room again, and switch to Mario. Now that they have Mario, they have to find a way to physically leave the room. The 1-star door that stops them from entering also stops them from leaving as well. So unfortunately, they're pretty much stuck. Or at least they would be if they couldn't just treat this door like a painting and jump into it. So, if you're wondering what the hell just happened, the answer is quite simple. It's quantum tunneling again. I didn't mention it before, but quantum tunneling not only works on floors, but it works on walls as well. As long as there's a gap between triangles, and you can reach it at a high enough speed, quantum tunneling through walls is just as viable, which is exactly what they do. They do 2 long jumps to give Mario just enough speed, then tunnel through the door and hit the loading zone on the other side, which makes it look like they jumped right into a painting. This allows them to exit the room and go back to the lobby. But don't relax now, because literally right after leaving that room, they have to do a double jump to gain enough vertical speed, then tunnel straight through the floor. This allows them to land on a small wall seam once again, which they perform a triple jump off of to reach the loading zone behind the 2nd floor door. Normally to open this door, you have to defeat the first Bowser, get the key to the basement, open the 2nd Bowser door once you get 30 stars, defeat the 2nd Bowser, which will then give you the key to open this door. But by tunneling through the floor and hitting the loading zone behind the door, they skip needing to do any of this or get any stars whatsoever. Now that they're through the 2nd floor door, they perform another glitchy long jump up the stairs, and as soon as they exit the door, they perform 2 more and tunnel into the wall, which then allows them to run along the seam of the wall and dive into the area behind the wall without a floor, which creates a heaven's portal just like diving into a glitchy corner would. This then sends them to the nearest ceiling, which just happens to be the floor of the endless staircase. More importantly, the end of the endless staircase. Because, believe it or not, the endless staircase isn't actually endless. It just teleports Mario back a bit when he hits a certain threshold. But since the Heaven's Portal took them past this threshold, they can enter the final Bowser level with 0 stars. Doing this skips the 50-star door and obviously the endless staircase, which you need 80 stars to bypass. But yeah, we are now in the final level of the game with 0 stars. And this next part doesn't need a ton of explaining, but is some of the most insane movement you'll ever see in a Mario game, so I'll just let it play. Yeah, that's totally how I do it as well. But yeah, the run is pretty much over. They effortlessly take care of Bowser and finish off the game with a total star count of 0. Now, you're probably wondering, is any of this actually possible for a human being to do? And the answer is, yeah, some stuff is, but quantum tunneling is absolutely not. There's only one spot in the entire game where a human being can perform quantum tunneling, and it's in Hazy Maze Cave. This trick is just way too precise with both its positioning and speed for a human being to reliably pull off. So as it stands right now, only a task can beat the game with 0 stars. But that begs the question, what is the lowest amount a human can beat the game with? If they can't do it with 0, what can they do it with? Well, it turns out that answer is 1. And honestly, the run itself isn't too much different from the one we just watched, albeit with a few major exceptions. Basically, they start the run off by performing a Hell's Portal, which just does the opposite of the Heaven's Portal, as in it sends the player down instead of up. Now that they've been sent down into the moat, they're able to walk underwater, enter the basement, then collect 1 star in Lethal Lava Land. They then use that 1 star to enter the character switching room, then do the same corner clip we saw in the task. This allows them to beat Goomboss, get the Mario key, and unlock Mario. Next, they head back downstairs and perform an NPC clip to get out of bounds. This is done by getting in between an NPC and a wall, and then talking to them, which disables collision of the wall, letting you clip right through it. Now they can navigate out of bounds, which for some reason has water in it, until they reach the loading zone for Bowser in the Fire Sea. Once in that level, they can beat Bowser, obtain the key, and head to the 2nd floor. Now they can run up by the 50-star door and perform another NPC clip with this rabbit, which allows them to get out of bounds again and perform a Heaven's Portal. This one sends them so high that they're able to hit the loading zone for the last Bowser level, entering it with only 1 star. Now, I want to give a huge shout out to Sharkly91, Really Tall, Migu, Bobby Bob, Adeal, and Rupa for making this amazing task and allowing me to use the footage of this task for this video. Also, a huge thank you to the Mario 64DS speedrunning Discord, specifically Emily the Koopa, who was very helpful with questions. And finally, I want to give an extra thank you to Adeal for answering any questions I had about the task and reading over my script to make sure what I was saying wasn't complete bullshit. But yeah guys, the lowest amount of stars needed to beat Mario 64DS is 0. And I think that's pretty fucking cool. Anyways guys, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will catch you in the next one.